Hello everyone, and welcome to the ASMR review show. For this video, I'm going to be talking about my 5 favorite albums of all time, and I own them all on vinyl, so I will be showcasing those in this video. There may be a little bit of repetition from a previous video of mine, so if you happen to have watched some of my older videos, then this may be a little similar. But for those of you who haven't, let's begin. First, a few honorable mentions, specifically to the records I have framed behind me, which is, of course, 3 that were very influential in my music taste growing up, specifically Bat Out of Hell by Loaf, Pyromania by Def Leppard, and Hemispheres by Rush. Those are not specifically in my top 10, but the music you listen to when you grow up really sets the standard for what you're going to be really into throughout the rest of your life, and those 3 were very important for me, so that's why I have those up there. The next first one, this is an honorable mention because it's a live album, and this one is my favorite live album. And this is Made in Japan by Deep Purple, which is from 1972. I think it wasn't released in Canada until 1973, so I'm not really sure what you would count that as. But it was recorded on their Japan tour in 1972. And the reason this is my favorite live album is because I think, to me, a good live album should showcase what a band can do in a live environment. And the best live albums are ones where they're so good that you have to listen to this version of the album over top of anything else. And Deep Purple, they're popular, but I still think they're criminally underrated. There's a band that's just so amazing in a live setting with what they can do. Here's the gatefold for you. Just the track listing and a nice sort of photo of the band with the rising sun image. And sort of to illustrate is that this is a double album, but there's only 7 songs, and in most cases there's only 2 songs per side, because there's a lot of long jams that the band adds on to the songs. There's a lot of extra soloing in there. So the songs that they played for this are Highway Star, Child in Time, Smoke on the Water, of course, The Mule, Strange Kind of Woman, Lazy, and Space Truckin'. And so, since this was their tour for the Machine Head album that they had just released, obviously most of these songs are from that album, which is probably their best studio album. And this was the band at like the peak of their intensity and their focus together. And so the studio versions of these songs are all really good, but you see the band let loose in this live setting with no real restrictions, and they just go totally full blast, and everyone is on their A game on this record. Space Truckin', here it's nearly 20 minutes long, and it just goes into this all kinds of crazy, weird, psychedelic type jams, and that's just really what makes the album great for me, is that you take songs that I already know and love, but you showcase the musicianship in a live environment, then you extend all the songs with a bunch of extra awesome moments to them, and you've got yourself at least my personal favorite live album of all time. I'm not really sure what would be like my second favorite. I've always liked Metallica's concert with the orchestra, S&M, and Pink Floyd always does really good live albums, specifically the one from the Division Bell tour, Pulse. There's probably a few I'm leaving out and I can't think of off the top of my head. But yes, this is an honorable mention, favorite live album. So, number 5. This is an album I featured in another video where I talked about my favorite hard rock and metal albums. But of course, we're going to talk about it here because it's number 5 for this. And this is Fear of a Blank Planet by Porcupine Tree. This is from 2007, if I recall correctly. And how can I describe this? Well, Porcupine Tree, it's a band that's mainly the product of lead singer, guitar player Steven Wilson. And this was a band that he had throughout the 90s. Originally it started as a solo project that he disguised as a band. And then eventually he acquired full members and it became a little bit more of a group effort. But he was still the lead writer to it. You know, there's usually always a leader in that case. And at the start of the 2000s, Steven Wilson became more interested in doing prog metal, because Porcupine Tree's earlier work was definitely very Pink Floyd inspired. It was very prog rock. And then near the end of the 90s, they had a bit of an alternative rock Radiohead phase with albums like Stupid Dream and Lightbulb Sun. But then starting with their 2002 album, In Absentia, they took a bit more of a prog metal phase. One could say that they're a mixture of Pink Floyd and Tool, which, spoiler alert, is probably why I like them so much. And so this album, then, I feel was the high point of their prog metal phase. They did one album after this called The Incident, but I think by that time the sort of creative well was starting to run a little dry, and Steven Wilson was more interested in other projects, which is why he went solo afterwards. But I do love the artwork for this, especially this gatefold here. The album is a concept album, and the sort of story of it is it's about the effect of social media on the youth of today and all other kinds of factors that the youth have to face, such as isolation from their peers, addiction to drugs, violence, pornography, just a bunch of other factors like that. And it's interesting because lyric-wise he manages to perfectly sort of tap into that mindset, even though Steven Wilson is obviously not of that demographic, nor was he when he wrote this album. So I think that's what's really impressive lyric-wise about this album, and it is very dark. It's very heavy at moments, but also pretty spacey. The title track, Fear of a Blank Planet, probably my favorite off the record, but I also really love the nearly 18-minute epic Anesthetize. I think that's how you say it. Yeah, it's 18 minutes, but yet it never gets boring, never stops, and it has a guitar solo from Alex Lifeson, the guitar player from Rush, which is pretty cool. And the other thing I like about this in particular, the vinyl version of it, is that this contains all of the tracks from an EP that the band released just after the album called Nil Recurring. And that was a couple of songs that were meant for the album, but they didn't make the final cut. So it is kind of cool because you have both the album and the EP of the unfinished songs from the album all together in one set. And before I owned this on vinyl, that was kind of the way I liked to listen to this album. I sort of felt it completed the experience of the lyrical journey of the characters and the themes. So it's nice to have that all together in one set. Not really sure how well all this tapping sounds. I can never tell when I make these videos. Well, that's okay, because I still like to do it, because I can talk about my favorite records. So, I would recommend this if you like bands like Pink Floyd or Tool, because it's both progressive, but it's also heavy, and it's got a nice concept to it. Next is album number 4, and this is one where, I have Pyromania by Def Leppard up there, but my true favorite, very predictable, is Hysteria by Def Leppard. This is from 1987. So, it's hard to say exactly, but I'm pretty sure that Def Leppard was the band that really got me into loving music. Just seeing footage of them live and their music videos and their sound. Growing up, it was like nothing I'd heard before at that time. That was the band that just really clicked for me and really got me exploring music. And I know, it's hard to determine what counts as a metal band, and there's a lot of genre purists, but I would say Def Leppard, it's fair to call them a hair metal band, so you could say it was the first metal band I listened to, or at least really got me into the rock genre. But I'll try not to argue too much with genre specifics because everyone has their own opinion on that. So, first of all, what I like about this is an original pressing, so it's a single vinyl. I know they recently did a remaster reissue that was a double vinyl, and I know that's kind of the trend because it can be heavier, 180 gram, but I think the sound still sounds good on a single vinyl, and then you could just get, more music per side. You don't have to constantly flip a record. So, I guess it's just a personal preference. Maybe it does sound better, but I wouldn't know. So, what I love about this album is it's pretty much a Def Leppard greatest hits album. And it took them a while to make it, too. It was probably about 4 years between this and Pyromania. And I know that's because the drummer, Rick Allen, he was in a car accident where he lost his arm. And so he learned how to play drums one-handed by using an electronic drum set with foot pedals used to trigger the sounds in place of his arm. And so it's incredibly talented for him to persevere, and the rest of the members of Def Leppard, they're really good friends for, letting him stick with him and persevere to do that. So, like the track listing, I'm just going to read it off, but every one of these songs is one of Def Leppard's best. You've got Woman, Rocket, Animal, Love Bites, Pour Some Sugar on Me, Armageddon Hit, Gods of War, which I think is very underrated, Don't Shoot Shotgun, Run Riot, Hysteria, Excitable, and Love and Affection. Obviously, there's a few of their best ones that are on other albums, but that's pretty amazing. Usually, if you get a band, where they're going for the more popular music, you'll have like 1 or 2 hits on there, and the rest is kind of just window dressing. But to have something where everything is just as good as the rest, that's pretty impressive. I know that Def Leppard's not the most influential band, and they're a band I listen to for fun, not for philosophical enlightenment. But it's my list of favorite records, and it was really important for me growing up, and I've had a lot of experiences with it over the years, so I definitely say this is one of my favorite records, and it's really great, it's really awesome. Next record is one where, if you know I like Porcupine Tree, you know they're like Tool and Pink Floyd. And so we've got to have some Pink Floyd on this list. I know that so far my choices have not been the most original. I do like a variety of music, but when it comes to my favorites and the stuff I grew up on, it was, the generic options. But that's okay. Generally our favorites are what stick with us for good emotional moments. So this is number 3, Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd from 1975. I will also say it's hard to pick a favorite album cover of all time, but that one really is up there. I mean, I just love this this image. It's sort of meant to metaphorically represent the idea of getting burned in the record industry. This guy's making a deal with, I'm assuming, some executive, and of course he's getting burned on fire, and then I like how it sort of affects the frame. And I'll show you the other pictures on the album, because they represent a different element, and they're all breaking out of the photo in some way. Like on the back you've got this guy here, and he's selling Pink Floyd merchandise in the desert, so the element is sand, and you see there's sand leaking out of the photo here. So, Pink Floyd, obviously a legendary progressive rock band with some sort of elements of the psychedelic and the space rock. And this album was the one they did after Dark Side of the Moon, which many would say is their biggest and best album, and I would agree, but my favorite is Wish You Were Here. This album is kind of a two-part concept album. On one hand, you have songs like Welcome to the Machine and Have a Cigar, which are about the mechanical nature of the record industry and the way that executives promote music as a product, not necessarily as an art. There's a really great moments. I mean, Pink Floyd, they're always great at using sound effects in their music. But there's a really good moment at the end of the song, Have a Cigar, where there's a guitar solo playing and sort of a whooshing sound, and then everything goes into tiny speakers, and then this transitions into someone dialing through a radio. So it's sort of meant to be a representation of the art, the music being transformed into the radio-friendly product. And I've never really heard someone do anything like that before, so it's pretty revolutionary for that. So this is the inner insert of the album. So here we have the wind element, and you see that the wind is sort of warping the outside. And then over here we have the water element. It's this diver having a splashless dive into this lake, and the water is leaking out along the bottom here, along with all the lyrics. And so the other part of the album is a tribute to their former member Syd Barrett, who's the original founding member, but they had to kick him out of the group because he was a little too far gone on the psychedelics. You know, he was there, but he wasn't there. And so the songs Shine on You, Crazy Diamond, and the title track, Wish You Were Here, are sort of a tribute to him. And there's an interesting story about this album in that Syd Barrett just randomly wandered into the studio while they were recording this, and they talked to them for a bit. And then after he left, they never saw him again. So it's very, sort of ironic in that way that he was a part of this album in terms of the visit to the studio and also lyrically. And musically, this album is fantastic. I mean, the atmospheric intro and the guitar solo to Shine on You, Crazy Diamond, which might be my favorite Pink Floyd song. It's hard to compete. I mean, there's that, and I also really love Echoes off of Metal. So it's a tough decision, but the song is so long and epic, they had to split it into two parts because it couldn't fit on one side of the vinyl. But yeah, I think I just love this album so much because it's got all of the musical talent and lyrical genius that Dark Side of the Moon had, but I feel like musically and emotionally it's just a little bit stronger, you know. I mean, I love Dark Side of the Moon like everyone else does, but this one has just got a slight edge that the other one doesn't have. Yeah, that's Wish You Were Here. Number 2, getting close there to the top. Number 2 is Paranoid by Black Sabbath. I mentioned that Def Leppard could sort of be considered the band that got me into metal, but if you want to name a legitimate metal band that got me into metal, that would be Black Sabbath. And I guess it's a bit of a generic pick because everyone would consider Paranoid to be probably their best album, but it's my favorite album by them too. And I mean, you can't really blame me for that. I mean, just this track listing is fantastic. You've got War Pigs, Paranoid, Planet Caravan, Iron Man, Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom, Rat Salad, and Fairies Wear Boots. And I mean, they have already done their reunion tour, and that's been wrapped up and finished for a while, but I know when they did do that tour that they played, you know, a good 5 to 6 songs, give or take, off of this album. I mean, that just shows how much of a crowd pleaser, but also how important this was. Because with Black Sabbath, I mean, I think I've probably told this story in another video that I did on them with other vinyls, but the whole thing with their sound is that Tony Iommi, he had lost the tips of his fingers in a factory accident, so when he went to play guitar, the tension was too difficult for him. It was just too painful, so eventually, not on this album, but in later albums, they would tune down to lower tuning, so there was less tension. And so that gave them more of the heavy sound, but also they were inspired by the horror imagery of the Boris Karloff film Black Sabbath. So they took that as their name and decided to focus more on a heavier sound. But they still had that blues element because they used to be a blues band, and that's what I really like about Sabbath, was the mixture of the sort of the funky, groovy blues rhythms, but with a more distorted, edgy guitar. And I will say, I mean, I love this album. Obviously, it's my second favorite album of all time, but this is such a silly cover. So the album was called Paranoid, but they wanted it to be called War Pigs because they wanted that to be the main song. But the studio was worried about potential negative reaction because the Vietnam War was going on at the time, in 1970. So the title was changed to Paranoid, which, interesting how it's one of their biggest songs, and yet they wrote it in about 5 minutes, sort of as a filler track. But the album cover is still their interpretation of a war pig. And it's this weird psychedelic blurry image of this guy with like yellow and a sword, and it's so 70s, and they were probably on drugs or something, but I just gotta love it. Like, it's so 70s. It's terrible, but it's also not. And it's not even the best Sabbath cover. That honor goes to Sabotage, if you know what I'm talking about. There's a gatefold on the inside. It's just a picture of the band. But can we bring back 70s hair as a social norm? Like, 70s mustaches, like that looks great. So my sort of special memory of this album is this is the first album that I bought myself. And, you know, when you're younger, you know, usually albums, you know, are CDs, they're gifts, right? Or, you know, your parents or relatives or friends to buy them, or you'll borrow them from people. But I remember that this was the first one I actually bought, like, with my own money, like, for myself. And the reason I did is because I had a friend who I would hang out with, and he had an MP3 player. It wasn't an iPod, with like a bunch of songs on it, and a bunch of metal songs I'd never heard of when I was growing up. That was a lot more heavier than what I was used to. And I know that the 3 songs that we would listen to the most off of there were Glenn Tipton's metal cover of the Rolling Stones' Painted Black, the live version of Metallica's Battery when they played with the orchestra for the S&M concert, and Iron Man. And just that opening riff of the song is just, it's so great. It's just so catchy. It might be my favorite guitar riff of all time. And that was probably my journey into really getting into metal music, was from this album. So, I mean, I love almost everything Black Sabbath did, but this one is easily still the best for me. Now, if you were an early follower of mine, or you've paid attention to any of my videos, or you've paid attention to my outfit, choice of attire, then you should have no difficulty guessing what number one is. Yes, of course, it is very predictable. It is Lateralus by Tool. Tool is my favorite band. Kind of a cliche choice, but that's the truth. It's interesting. It's hard if you want to take your favorites of something and organize them from like 27 to 10 or something like that. But when you get to your top few, you shouldn't have to really think about it. It should just be automatic. So it's kind of one of those things. I've never had to think why Lateralus is my favorite album, or why Tool is my favorite band. It's just natural. I just sort of know. And, you know, usually your favorites have some kind of emotional attachment to it. I mean, Fear of a Blank Planet was an album that I connected with growing up in high school because I felt sort of connected to it, which I think is the beauty of music, that you can be connected to people and emotions and songs and ideas that you've never met before. And Hysteria was an album that was very fun growing up, so I have fond memories of it. Wish You Were Here was an album that I feel helped transition me into adult life, I guess. And Paranoid was an album that just experienced me, showed me this whole genre that would become my favorite, the metal genre. And I think Lateralus was really all of those wrapped up together in one. It's by far Tool's best album. There's nothing really much to the gatefold, it's just more spirals. But there's just something about it that clicked, and I'm probably going to end up repeating myself from the final review I did of Tool's discography, but my first memory of Tool was I was reading a magazine article about Rush, and there was an interview with Alex Lifeson talking about how prog was not really a mainstream genre. And he joked about how, oh, but when I went to Canadian Tire, I heard Schism by Tool playing. And he joked that it was probably just because they sell tools at Canadian Tire why they were playing Tool on the radio. And then in Guitar Hero World Tour, there's that special venue in the game where it's all designed like Tool artwork, and there's 3 Tool songs in the game, Parabola, Schism, and Vicarious. Of course, the first 2 being on this album. So I really fell in love with playing those songs in the game because they were very difficult, and I always wanted to play the challenging songs. And so then one day, you know, when I was just at the store, you know, the electronics store, and was looking in the CD section, I saw that Lateralus was there, so of course I bought that because it had 2 of the songs that I knew. And I remember when I first listened to it, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, and I guess I wasn't expecting it to be as weird as it was. Like, the first song is The Grudge, and that one, like, doesn't really have a conventional song structure to it. There's not really like a verse or a chorus or a bridge. The whole song just kind of moves. But then it builds up to an incredible drum solo at the end. That's fantastic. Also at that time when I started listening to Tool, the only instrument I really played at that time was drums. I hadn't really started playing guitar or bass yet. So of course, Tool, they're a very drum-heavy band. Danny Carey has a very distinct sound. And so that's probably another reason why I fell in love with it, because it was fun just to, you know, come home and practice drums and listen to that album and just like try to aggressively play songs like Ticks and Leeches as fast as possible. So other than that, I'm not really sure how I can describe why I love this album so much. It was just everything clicked for me at the right time, and I know there's some that will probably think the average Tool fan is incredibly pretentious, and you know, when they have like weird stuff like putting the Fibonacci sequence in a song or something like that, but I don't really care. I love this band, I love this album, and if I'm ever asked what my favorite is, I never have to stop and think about it. I just simply know it's Lateralus. It has been, and it probably always will be. And yeah, those are my top 5 favorite albums, plus a few extras. I mean, I'd like to expand this to a larger video, but I'd have to put Anima by Tool on here, and that one hasn't had a final reissue. I don't have it, unfortunately. There's probably a lot of others that I'd have to throw on here. I don't know. Maybe I'll just create a large list and I'll do like a speed run through it or something like that. But yeah, those are my top 5 favorite albums. I encourage you to share your top 5 with me as well. Maybe it's something I love, maybe it's something I hate, maybe it's something I've never even heard of. There's a possibility. But in any case, thanks for listening to me ramble about this. Have a good night, and keep listening to music, keep on rocking out.